All right, welcome everyone. Pleasure to have you this afternoon. Welcome to another NACo webinar, the first of the year. We're excited to see the attendance and to see those joining us for today's webinar. And just as a reminder, you're in the advanced security resources that are available for local government through the Center for Internet Security. One of the challenges I have found over the past few years is knowing what resources we should be taking advantage of and being able to differentiate between one organization that provides a resource and another. So this is the one effort in that direction to help make it easier for you to find important security resources at reasonable costs where there are costs. So before we get started, just a reminder, if everyone can, we admit you with your video off and your chat muted, or excuse me, your voice muted. We will give you opportunities, absolutely, if you want to ask a question along the way. Both Brittany Gallardian and myself, Rita Reynolds, will be monitoring the chat, and we're just going to get started. I want to jump right into our presentation today. So as I said, I'm Rita Reynolds, the CIO here at NACo. I know many of you and really glad to see the attendance that we have for this webinar. We have the privilege of having the Vice President of Election Operations and Support under the Center for Internet Security, Catherine Bookbar. I've known Kathy for years, and she comes to us from a wealth of experience in Pennsylvania, and has made that leap to the national level with the Center for Internet Security. She's going to kick it off, and then many of you may know Eugene Kipnis, Program Manager for the MSISAC and the EIISAC. It is one of the NACo priorities on cybersecurity that all counties join both MSISAC and EIISAC. So you'll hear a bit about that if you're not already a member. And then finally, Jamie Ward, who some of you know, he's the account executive within the Center for Internet Security Services and has a unique background, which I'm sure he can share a little bit, but he is definitely akin to what's needed at the local level, given his background, and is very knowledgeable with a number of the services and programs that the Center for Internet Security provides. So without further ado, Kathy, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thanks so much, Rita, and really glad to be here, and hi to everybody. I think I see some names that are family. So thanks all for joining. And so I come to, as Rita said, I come to Center for Internet Security, having been Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, and before that as Senior Advisor to the Governor on election modernization. So I was one of you. I was one of you trying to figure out how to get everything done. We were all overwhelmed, too much to do, not enough time, not enough resources. And so when I came to Center for Internet Security, a lot of which, I knew what they offered and all of the great services and programs they had, but a lot I didn't know. And so one of the things that's been really great is working with people like Rita and Eugene and Jamie to make sure that everybody knows that there is so much out there that's federally funded and free for local and state election officials and state and local tribal and territorial governments. And somehow there was a ton of stuff that I didn't know. So made it my mission to make sure that you all do know everything that's available. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give kind of an overview. And then I'm going to turn it over to Eugene and Jamie to give some details about some of the, let me just get to the right screen here. Some of the highest priority, sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. There we go. Highest priority resources that you could get from us at no cost to you. So are you ready for the next election? So I'm going to focus on election security, but really a lot of the same tools are available to the entire county or jurisdiction. So we'll go through what is and what isn't. So, from the election standpoint, look, we all know you'd have to be living under a rock to not see that we are constantly dealing with unprecedented numbers of threats and attempted attacks, and you've got the Log4j, you've got malware, you've got every day we read about additional challenges to us. So again, the federal government has funded help for us so that you can have this protection, these protections free. And I'm going to say free a lot of times because I want to make sure that that part gets through. So first, as Rita said, hopefully everybody on this call is already a member of the MS-ISAC and or EI-ISAC. So, you know, if you're election related, you really should do both because they have, there are services and programs that you get from each. The MS-ISAC is for any state, local, territorial, and tribal government entity. And the EI-ISAC is for anybody that touches on elections. So not just the election official, but it could be the CIO, other IT folks who deal with the election systems. So in addition to being a member of the ISACs, I want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all that it offers. We've got a 24/7, 365 security operations center, and it's armed with experts who are there literally around the clock every day of the year for you. And so what that means is that, you know, let's say you get an email or somebody reports an email and you're just not sure whether it contains something malicious that you should be doing something further about, you could send it over to us and we do the work for you. We're like an extension of your team, no cost to you. On top of that, there's tons of resources, threat briefings, cyber incident response, lots of different things that our 24/7 team of experts can provide to you. Again, free, no charge to you. These are, you know, kind of more details on all the free the benefits of membership. And there's just, you know, you could go onto the Center for Internet Security's website, get more details about any of these things. I already talked about the 24/7 Operations Center. We've got tons of training materials. We can help you should there be any cyber incident. We can help you, again, extension of your team. And we'll go into detail. Some of Jamie and Eugene will go into some detail about some of the other things that are available.
Kathy, before you go on, if you can go back to that slide,
Yeah.
I just want to add one piece that it took me a little bit of follow through, and with Eugene's help, I finally was able to get access to the HISN portal network, and it's been there for a while, and I was amazed at the wealth of information that's in there. And truly, there's different communities that you have to get permission to join, but it's an area where we're not having to Google and search for information. You can go like almost like a one-stop shop. So that's something I'm not sure how well our county members have been able to access, but just wanted to reinforce that it is a very valuable resource, as well as some of the other things for sure.
That's great, Rita, and thanks for pointing that out. And I will tell you when we get to the very end of my presentation, I'm going to tell you about something that's coming soon, which is going to be, in effect, an easier to access extension of this. We're creating a member portal, a peer-to-peer member collaboration portal, both for MS-ISAC members and EI-ISAC members. And it's going to have a lot more, from what I understand, it's just going to be much easier to use than a lot of times. Again, like the HISN network has had its challenges. It will allow not only like listserv capability, which I know many states have internal within the state capability listservs going back and forth between election officials and others, but it will also allow ability to share files, to help each other, make sure that we're all, you know, I mean, there's no reason, a lot of what we deal with every day, our fellow, you know, professionals in other states are dealing with the same stuff. So the more we can be collaborating and sharing tools, the better. Yeah. So that's coming this spring, and I'll get to that at the end. But it's not a reason not to join the HISN portal as well. But it's going to be even more available, better tools. So Eugene and Jamie are going to talk about details, the first two. So two of the things that I had no idea a year ago that were available free to election officials and election offices are the first two things here. So MDBR is available to all government entities, not just elections, free. And it's easy to install. And again, Eugene will be talking further about that. EDR, so that's the malicious domain blocking and reporting. EDR, the Endpoint Detection and Response, which you might also sometimes hear us talk about as ESS, which is just the Center for Internet Security, our internal name for that advanced endpoint detection and response, is each computer protection. So for the federal government has provided free licenses for anything that touches elections. So your entire election office, every computer that you have could get this for free. And then Jamie will also tell you about how if you want it for your whole county, which is the most effective way to go about this, you can also purchase it at low cost for the rest of your county, but you'll know coming in that you get all the free credits for anything that touches elections. So it's a win for everybody. And then I don't know if Eugene or Jamie, if you'll touch on the CIS Secure Suite membership tools, but again, free tools for members that just give you more ability to assess your strength and make sure that you're applying, secure settings, the most secure settings to all your devices. And I'm going to stop momentarily to get onto the details, but these are the coming soon things that I want to make sure that you all know about for members. So I already talked about the second one, the ISAC member collaboration forum. I think it's going to be great opportunity for members to really collaborate. The first one is, I don't know how many of you, I know when I was in Pennsylvania, the first election handbook came out in 2018, and it had a ton of information with all these different standards to make sure that we knew how to roadmap, what we were already doing well, where we could be stronger on election security. Well, this spring, we're coming out with a new version. It's called the Essential Guide to Election Security. And what it's going to be is it's going to be both electronic and on paper. So we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to continuously update it. So we're going to roll it out on a GitHub type of platform, and that way we're going to be able to attach resources, link to other maybe third-party resources, and help go to where you are to make it as easy as possible for you to get this information and help you assess yourself and move forward on your strength, the strength of your election security. All right, I'm going to stop there because we've got so much material, but I'm going to stay around. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them. And now I'll kick it over to, so Eugene and Jamie, who's going next? All right, Jamie Ward. Thanks very much. I'm going to end my my share.
Thank you, Kathy, very much. Greetings, everyone. Many of you I do recognize by name, and it's sadly been a year since I've seen a lot of you in person due to our travel restrictions. We have definitely been excited to be back out on the road. I will be at NACo Ledge, and I am, yes, still the mayor of Mayfield, New York. 3 terms in, gray hair to prove it. Still have a junky water tower that's costing $1.5 million to replace. I got $1 million secured, and we're bonding 5. So anyway, I tell that story because I'm no stranger to your world. I know what local government life is like, and I know how hard it is to get the resources and funding you need to do a great job. And in today's cyber world, we need all the help we can get. And that's what's so great about being a part of such an awesome mission here at CIS and being a 501c3 nonprofit funded by DHS, providing those services. It gets us out of bed in the morning. We're very excited and happy to be here to assist. So to no further ado, I am an evangelist for our services team. I'm an account executive that covers those fee-based services that we offer on a cost recovery basis. One of those services happens to be our endpoint security service, better known as EDR. And another is our Albert intrusion detection monitoring. Many of you have heard me speak in the past, either in person or at NACo events on that service of Albert. Today, we want to bring the endpoint security focus to you all. We are excited to announce our partnership with Crowdstrike, where since last October, we have offered to our general membership within the MSISAC and EIISAC a robust detection for your endpoints. as Kathy said, all of the election systems, whether they be floating laptops for flex environments or all your elections workstations and servers, are completely free and funded by DHS, 100%. So what we've been doing is a hybrid approach to all of our entities that are looking for robust endpoint security services, where the county or city or whoever it may be will have their endpoints designated for elections and for the county or city proper. And we're combined laterally driving that deployment all through one security operations center here at CIS. So we partnered about 18 months ago with Crowdstrike in a long pilot to assess who we were going to go forward with. We vetted some big names in the industry, finally landing with Crowdstrike as that partner. We literally have a long history now of understanding of what that endpoint security demand is and what we needed to do to kind of refine and perfect that service. So with that, I'm going to jump into the tools and get a little more technical. And I'll keep it high level in some spots, but I'll jump in the weeds for those of you technical folks on the call. With regard to an endpoint security service, we are noticing a trend across the nation. The next gen antivirus is becoming like the minimum requirement for many cyber risk insurance assessments and requirements. I can't tell you, I can't even count in the last 30 days how many school districts or cities or counties that came to us and said, we need to do something fast. My deductible went up to 500,000 because I have traditional AV. And they said, I need next generation antivirus. This service, we timed it perfectly. It is really going to assist in raising your posture to those new requirements, even not being driven by the insurance industry, just from the nature of attacking the more sophisticated threats of today with equal defense measures. It's necessary. The days of having a firewall and an AV are over. The threats are more and more complex. And that's where these features of this endpoint security service, or better known as EDR, are really shining through our new members that are signing up each day. So our next gen antivirus component is coupled with an EDR functionality module. And we added 3 advanced capability tools as part of this service. This is a fully managed solution. So our SOC that runs 24/7, 365 can whitelist something for you on demand. Also, it comes with some customizable device controls, as well as some great alignment to our industry standards, which I'll get into in a few moments here. With regard to that first module of 5, I want to dive into the Falcon Prevent module. This is that next generation antivirus piece. This gives you the ability to monitor encrypted malicious threats using known indicators of compromise or signatures, or also behavioral aesthetics. That gives you the ability to detect those zero-day threats or those unknown threats. This in itself definitely meet the requirements for a next-gen AV, but it is coupled with a sister module called Falcon Insight. Falcon Insight allows our analysts at 11:59 on New Year's Eve to receive an alert, scrub it for false positives, and make that decision, it's time to quarantine this machine. This is a credible threat. So without you even having to worry or be involved, we have the ability to detect the threat and then take action on that and actually safely quarantine it from the rest of your environment, but also allowing you secure access through this agent to go in and remediate remotely, should you find that necessary. With regard to the endpoints on your network, each having this client, you have the ability for robust threat hunting and the ability to create custom detection rules for specific things in your environment that you want to be alerted to, should that happen. All of this is happening through our Security Operations Center, and our staff, as you know, it never leaves and never, well, they leave, but 3 shifts a day, they're replaced. Whether it's a pandemic or natural disaster or storms in the Northeast, as we get many, our SOC never closes. We are that front line for our state, local, tribal, and territory partners, and we work hand in hand with our federal partners at CISA Central. That was the previous NCIC, National Cybersecurity Communication and Integration Center, where we have liaisons that are CIS personnel on the floor, working with our federal partners, 3- and 4-letter acronyms, you can guess who, receiving and sending that threat intel back and forth. This new service is just going to add to that intel capability and that shared threat environment through our Security Operations Center. The third module goes into where we call these advanced capability modules. This is a tool called Falcon Discover. Now, it gives you the ability on demand to do a asset inventory of all the hardware that's connected to your network. Did one of your folks bring in an Alexa device today, or somebody got their gaming laptop plugged into a switch? Not very safe moves, but also from an inventory asset capability, working towards our controls implementation of inventory all hardware on your network. This gives you a very good, robust ability to see what assets are actually on your network and which one of them could be rogue devices. On top of that, we have two other functionalities that can be accessed, but just by contacting our SOC directly. And one of them is the application inventory feature. At any time, you could request from our SOC a application inventory of your entire environment. They will give you a listing in a report, a very easy to read report that you can utilize to kind of root out and find what specific versions of software are running. Are there any unauthorized or suspicious softwares that are running on any of your endpoints, and much more. On top of that, the user account monitoring capability is accessed the same way. You can email or call our SOC, and we can give you some user level tracking of failed user login attempts, anytime admin credentials are used, and much more from a security awareness standpoint. This can be utilized for. On top of that, this comes with the last two agents, which are modules, I should say, in the single Crowdstrike agent, and that is the Falcon device control module. That gives you USB device control on every endpoint that you have the agent deployed. Now, we all know insider threats are real, and every conference just about that we go to today has flash drives on tables. Now, supply chain hacks we read about and hear about. If it's a nefarious or nation state that isn't really fond of the US, they could very well be loading flash drives with malicious code or software. Who would we know by plugging that in? So the ability to have every USB that's plugged into your network logged and reported definitely gives you a place to start. On top of that, you could take even broader controls to actually make devices read-only, or block all USB devices except for a certain VLAN that's segregated off your network, or have the ability to just allow specific serial numbers that you issue within your enterprise environment. On top of that, you could do as we do, because we drink our own Kool-Aid and we utilize these Falcon agents to protect our systems, where CIS now issues what we call iron key devices. They are encrypted flash drives, and they are the only flash drives that are allowed within our networks on our machines. So many of you might not have a maturity policy set for that level of robust control, but something to keep in mind, and definitely an additional tool to do so. On top of that, the fifth and final module is the one in the center called the host-based firewall controls. Host-based firewall controls give you the ability to take advantage of your native Windows firewall settings, but instead of worrying about a GPO push or through group policy, hoping the machine is turned on when you make that push occur, this will allow any live connected machines or devices that are connected via the cloud to receive those firewall rule changes. And we've noticed even more so during this pandemic, a greater need for endpoint firewall settings to be tuned in or turned up, because of the fact that the folks aren't behind that hardened infrastructure of your networks in each of your offices or data centers. So by folks working from home or remote, you can take this host and push out those firewall rule sets, allowing you to have that capability. So with regard to the recap on all five of these, this is the modules these are the modules we just discussed. Two on the left are the Falcon Prevent and Falcon Insight module. That's that next Gen Antivirus piece and that EDR functionality with the Insight module. And the three on the right were those advanced capabilities that we had just covered. Now, from a Q&A standpoint, we're going to save questions for the end. But if you want to fire into the chat right now your questions so we can have them out in front, Rita or somebody that would moderate them at the end of our briefing, we can have them just so you don't forget, because I'm sure there's a lot of content you've got from Kathy and to me that's been covering this, but I just want to make sure we have a good methodology for those questions to get answered.
Thanks, Jamie. I was going to mention we do have a number of questions already, so I will hold them till you tell us when.
Yep. Yeah, we figure we leave 15 minutes at the end for everyone to be answered, if that's good. Excellent. So with that, that was the tooling that we selected. Many of you might have CrowdStrike already. Great company, great tool, but that's only part of it. Now, you all can go out and get free tools that you can work on your own that are open source, or you can spend a bunch of money and get some of the latest and greatest that are advertised or brought to you, in demos and such. But what you do with those tools and the experts that are managing and monitoring those tools is really where the work begins, and that peace of mind actually happens. Our Security Operations Center has been around a long time. CIS has been around since Y2K, literally founded right after Y2K. We have the expertise in-house that literally works 24/7, 365, analyzing threats across the nation. We have almost 900 other sensors deployed. We manage a tremendous amount of logs and alert on those logs through a managed security service, and also looking at threats and malicious files that are being submitted from across all of our over 13,000 members. Now, having our SOC taking your endpoints and their alerts, scrubbing false positives, and only notifying you of actionable alerts has really given peace of mind to many of our folks. And we're covering all bases here. We have large entities with thousands and thousands of endpoints that have the expertise, and they even have a security team of 3 to 5 individuals that normally would do alert scrubbing, that have taken that off their plate and now are doing threat hunting and doing more vulnerability type work, and taking that alert fatigue and scrubbing of logs and alerts off of their daily routines. Let that be done at our SOC, so you all can do something else more proactively. On top of that, to the other extreme, we have entities that the shop teacher in a high school is the IT person, and they don't have that expertise and or resources to do so. But they now have the ability to have that protection through our SOC and have that phone call or an email away for additional questions. Now, with regard to how we do this and under what time frame, we are under the national average in the commercial sector of a 10-minute from detection and notification standpoint, giving you peace of mind. We, in 10 minutes or less, will have analyzed an alert, deemed it either false positive or credible, and if credible, have already quarantined the machine, and then notified you via email and via phone. I've got a quick test. I guess we'll call it a testimonial, but it's a true event, and it was unsolicited. About 3 weeks ago, we had an entity that had an alert. The SOC got the alert on the weekend. It was ransomware. The analyst made the call to pull a virtual lever and quarantine the machine. They then sent an alert via email with the details, full details of what occurred, and then started dialing. They called the entity. Guess what? John Doe didn't work there anymore. So we did our best. We called again. That's what we had for escalation criteria in the system. Monday, we received a panicked or frantic call from that entity, and they were like, "Oh, I see you were calling us. We had a critical alert," and it ended up being the same analyst or similar analyst was involved to the call and said, "Calm down. No, we got your case here. The machine is quarantined. Do you need help remediating that?" As you know, as being an MSISAC member with or without any service, our incident response from our CERT is available to you remotely for pre-incident response planning and post-incident forensics. They were able to remediate it themselves, but they were very grateful that over a weekend, they were able to know that we were looking out over their network and being able to take action on their behalf. That's just one small case. That I'm sure there are many more that happen on a daily basis. This one just happened to come up in one of our group meetings where one of our teams shared. From a quick flow of how the events are generated, you basically have a endpoint security service or EDR agent that detects or blocks that malicious activity. That alert is generated and sent to our SOC, where our SOC analyst, live human intel analyst, is going to remove those false positives, scrub all that from alert fatigue, and actually make a notification via email and then phone to you, letting you know that the alert has been quarantined, but you should take action. Sometimes it's more than one workstation or endpoint. With that, in today's world, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, we definitely need to be more on the offense and defense with our floating machines or our hybrid work environments. These machines are not under the infrastructure that your Palo Altos and your robust firewalls and IDSs within your network centers. These are working from cable modems, across homes in America. I know I don't have to tell you that. Having a cloud agent that is able to be able to have that level of protection, whether they're on or off prem, definitely makes it for a better peace of mind than just kind of, hoping and keeping your fingers crossed, as we've seen. Real quick, from an alignment standpoint, the Endpoint Security Service, or EDR tools, meet the MITRE ATT&CK framework alignment. They are FedRAMP certified, and they assist with CIS critical controls implementation of critical control 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 13, and 17. So with that, I want to highlight once again, any of your endpoints that you are use, whether partially, sometimes throughout the year, or throughout the entire year, that are deemed for elections use, are completely no cost. Kathy's team will send you a simple MOA agreement, and you can literally etch that and send it right back. And 48 hours later, you'll get keys to deploy those endpoint clients. It's really that simple. And then on the fee-based side, we negotiated with CrowdStrike a $60 per endpoint cost point. And I'm going to say this because I get this question a lot. Yes, that's $60 per endpoint per year. Yes, that includes the CrowdStrike tooling and the SOC monitoring and everything I talked about today. That is a complete package that we negotiated on behalf of 13,000 members. As a 501c3 nonprofit, whatever it costs us to deploy, we pass on to you all to serve that mission to keep you all protected. You can procure as little as one endpoint. That is a decision CIS and Kathy and our fellow executive leadership team were involved in making, where we literally will allow you to procure one endpoint. And there is a small village in upstate New York and a town now that each bought one for their clerk's office. They don't have a big budget. And instead of going to Walmart to get their Norton antivirus, they went and procured one endpoint. So small town America has the ability to buy 5 or 6, or large cities, towns, villages, or counties, in your case, could buy 20 and just test them, or put them on their servers, in a block of whatever you want. From a cost standpoint, we can get into the more details as time permits. I do have a services email DL that you can submit any inquiries at services@cisecurity.org. And if anyone is in a rush, there is a $51 early adopter cost that for the first year, which I think we're cutting it close, but it can still be done if any of you are in that quick of a hurry. With that, I want to pass it to my colleague Eugene.
Hey, Jamie, I know you said no questions, but just go back to the pricing
Absolutely.
real quick. I just want to emphasize that this is for the end users that would not be deemed election covered, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I liberally stress, if you use a laptop for elections and at any time, Kathy, I can see you nodding when I said it, that is considered an endpoint that's elections. If it ever touches election space, say even 20% of the year, that's an elections endpoint, correct? Yes. And that's easy to do because you know how, Rita, being you were in government and you understand, you share devices or you flex devices in. Some of that takes place in some of the smaller entities. And if that is an election touching endpoint ever, that is at zero cost and quick deployment.
Well, I'm thinking of smaller counties where the IT shop might have 5 individuals, and at some point throughout the year, they're interacting with the elections office
Absolutely.
to support them.
As long as there's a case for it, that we advocate on their behalf, definitely.
Yeah, and that's different than like if I'm in the Human Services Department or
in Florida, all of our 67 elections offices, because they have separate offices, right?
True.
Yep. So excellent, but good clarity, Greta, and that's where it's at. And this is all, like I said, on cost recovery basis. So the costs are what they are, what we pay CrowdStrike and the engineer and the analyst to maintain and manage the service. And we just pass that along to y'all. So with that, I'm going to kick it out to my longtime travel buddy and colleague, Eugene Kipnis. Eugene.
And of course, I was still muted. Thank you all for hosting us here. It's been a while since I've seen those of you who I've worked with in the past, and hope to see you all soon. I'll also be at the NACo Legislative Conference. Looking forward to getting down to DC and seeing some familiar faces and getting collaboration in person again a bit. I'm going to be talking about another service that's this one is completely free to any SLTT, state, local, tribal, territorial. That means county offices, county elections, whether or not you're doing it from the core county perspective and it's going to cover everybody, or just your elections folks, this isn't going to cost anything. And this is a kind of a core service we've been providing through our federal funding at the MS and EISAC for the last couple of years, and it's been a big success. And it's malicious domain blocking and reporting, or MDBR as we call it. So what this is it's a DNS service that prevents your endpoints and your systems from reaching out to malicious domains. It prevents malicious traffic by blocking it and not allowing it to resolve. And this is really easy. It's probably one of the easier services to implement. It replaces kind of a piece in your infrastructure and takes over acting as your DNS. And with people, in most cases, it doesn't take very long to implement. And then you can set up your old DNS as your backup. There's no hardware requirements. You don't have to buy anything to make this work. Very, very easy to handle. And it's going to take care of a lot of malware threats. We always call out ransomware as a big deal. Everybody's always worried about that, but also phishing. And so whether it's, a nation state actor has crafted the perfect email, spoofing and acting like they're your boss, telling you that they need everyone's payroll information, or they want you to click this link to enter in some information or log in and do something. If there's a link involved in that, or there's malicious traffic and they're trying to get you to click something, you click on that. This service is going to prevent that from going anywhere bad. Or even if it's just as simple as Bob from accounting clicked a bad link, it protects against those cases too. Let me get my slides advancing. There we go. So the way it works is, I already kind of briefly covered this. It's simple. Your normal domain name service, you would actually replace it with this Akamai DNS server. So you're going to set up Akamai, which is our partner that runs this service from the technical perspective. You're going to take them and you're going to set them up as your DNS. And we have instructions on how to do that. We'll cover some of that in the end. The second step is really, once you have that spun up, that's the work for how you get it set up. That's it. That's the only setup portion. Every lookup that is attempted from your organization for everyone within that uses your DNS centrally, that's going to be compared against a list of known bad domains. It's going to be checked for suspicious, levels of suspiciousness. It's not just like some sort of signature-based thing. It does also cover a lot of suspected and known malicious combined. So it'll compare it against those factors and block that. So, in the case of ransomware, let's say you're trying to pull down ransomware inadvertently. A machine is beaconing out or reaching out to a domain, or a malicious link has been clicked. It's just not going to pull down because that won't resolve if it's blocked by Akamai. That's fantastic. The other case is, malicious command and control. If you've got an infected machine that's trying to beacon out to its malware command and control network, if that malicious domain is recognized by Akamai, that gets cut right off. It's not going to be able to beacon back. That's a mechanism that can be used to bring down encryption keys to actually initiate ransomware infections in a meaningful way. So then here's the kicker, where it's kind of a bit of a value add on top of the fact that this is really a free tuned Akamai service that we're providing, is that we give you reporting on it. And the important thing here is, yes, you can conceivably have a machine that is effectively blocking malicious traffic using this service. It's constantly trying to reach out to those malicious domains. The Akamai DNS is blocking it. But what's important is, you'll want to know if you can remediate that. You still have an infected machine or possibly malicious activity occurring. So when you get these reports, you'll see what the activity was that was blocked. You will see the information you need, and then you can reach out to us and try and get help with remediation. Jamie just mentioned our incident response and digital forensics assistance. So CIS can help out with that. And here's a quick diagram for those of you who may be less familiar with this type of service or DNS in general. So let's say you want to go to well, you may not want to go to it. Let's say you click a link for badsite.com. It's malicious. That originally was going to go through your DNS service, but it's actually going to get passed to Akamai if you're on this service. It's going to respond that it doesn't actually exist. It won't allow you to get through. Whereas if you didn't have that layer of security, you would have actually been able to resolve that URL or DNS domain name. You would actually reach out and then possibly be the recipient of a malware infection. In this case, though, Akamai is not going to allow it through. It's going to respond that no such listing exists. And then after that, it's going to kick off a cascade where it actually is logged and kind of compiled as part of a report that you get on a weekly basis. So that's where you get that reporting. That's where you can see your threat landscape from the domain requests perspective. So I just want to talk a little bit about the impact quickly. So we've already said this is going to help prevent ransomware. It's going to help prevent phishing attacks. It's going to help prevent a lot of different malware interactions, which is so key for people. Right now, we've got just over 4,000 enrolled state and local members who are enjoying and using this service. We've got a lot of good feedback. I always stress the ease of use, the low touch nature of this. One of our members, they said the same thing as one of my favorite video game designers. It just works. You get it set up, it keeps going, it works, it protects you. But we've blocked over 3 billion DNS requests out of 592 billion total requests that were done since the inception in 2020. So this makes up 0.5% of all traffic that has been routed through the program. So it doesn't seem like a huge proportion overall when you look at it, but just consider how many pieces of digital touch that you have across your organization, how many people and end users, and how many programs are going to possibly be beaconing out and leveraging DNS for whether it's web browsing or for other applications and processes and needs. If you think about the mass quantity of the sheer volume of interaction that our computing systems have with DNS, 0.5% being bad is scary. And so it's that 0.5% that can cause you to work overtime a week trying to fix a problem. And so that actually stands out to me really seriously. I'm proud to see that 3 billion malicious interactions were blocked over the past 2 years. 65% of those requests were known malware domains. That's a big deal. That's what we're really aiming to, in a large way, prevent. 22% were related to that malicious command and control, like I mentioned, and about 5% were directly related to phishing activity. So if you can take away some of these and mitigate some of these threats in alignment with some education and training for your people, you can really shrink some of that attack surface, really take some of that risk out. We mentioned that you'll get a report. The report is really helpful so that you can start remediation where needed. You've got the severity, the threat type, a confidence level is always provided. That's good because if it's a suspected threat, it's possibly malicious. It could still block there. The top domain's blocked, so that's important. You know, there's seeing if it's consistent and it's possibly a persistent problem. And then the reasons they're believed to be malicious. You know, if we're looking at something that could be ransomware, that's something that's good to know. And then it's really easy to sign up. So I already mentioned that the real core component there, like the actual mechanics, is really just setting up and pointing your DNS to Akamai. There's just a few steps to get you enrolled so that you get it for free through us. You've got to head to our website that we've set up. It's mdbr.cisecurity.org. Basically, it's a membership validation thing. You have to be an MSISAC or EIISAC member, which great news there. If you're not yet, it's free, and it takes about 5 seconds to sign up and get yourself verified over the course of a day or two from our accounts team. But then once you're signed up, we're gonna need a few pieces of info to make sure we get you set up. So we'll need your contact info and then technical contacts so we can make sure that if you have any troubleshooting needs or any issues getting your DNS ported that way, we can assist with the right folks. You know, if you're an executive that wants your organization on this, we'll want your IT person who handles it to work with us. Then for reporting contacts, whoever's going to handle the reports and ingest them and take into action the info we have. But it's also important that we get your public IP addresses or your net blocks from your organization. And then we also are going to want to know whether you are doing kind of what we call like a roll-up situation, or you provide services to other departments and areas and government organizations. Like if you're a Core County IT person, you might provide IT services to the sheriff's office. You might also provide it to the elections office. You might provide it to various ones. We want to know who we're covering, and it helps us to look at the threat landscape and also to know who we're actually working with. And so once you set that form up, and fill that out and give us all those details. You'll get confirmation. They do the membership verification and all that, and it's free. So we'll work with you on setup. You can work through it and get support if you need it. My little soapbox speech is going to be, this is one of the easiest things you can do. And it's constantly just kind of there preventing bad stuff from happening. There's a lot of services and a lot of things that we can do for you in the case where you need help, you want to learn about threats, you want to learn about mitigating and doing things. This thing just mitigates threat. So right off the bat, if you signed up for this service and you started using it, you should be able to sleep a little bit safer and a little bit easier. It should take away headaches. It should take away time, staff stress, and staff needs and hours. If you don't already have a security-focused DNS service like this, this is a big win, especially for smaller organizations. If you don't have an IT person who can spend time dedicated to cybersecurity, who can work on mitigating threats, who is operating devices that do monitoring or operating services that do monitoring and keeping their eyes on glass for that type of thing. If you just don't have those resources, like I said, this is zero touch. Once you get this set up, barring any troubleshooting or issues there, this should help out. And so that's what I want to stress. This is very popular among small organizations like K-12 school districts, county offices, city offices that have lower staffing levels, because this actually is a staff augment in so many ways. So that's my preaching there for the day. It's easy to sign up. You can head to this website here, mdbr.cisecurity.org. And if you're already working with the MSISAC, if you forget that, you can always just badger whoever your account manager is. And if you're not a member, let's get you signed up. So with that, I'll hand things back to Rita.
Eugene, thank you so much. And I just want to say, from a testimonial perspective, it is one of the easiest things my staff has had to do. And the return on investment, which is zero, which is great, is well worth it. So what I'm going to do, we have a lot of questions in the chat. I'm going to go the most recent and work my way up, only because this is fresh on everyone's memory. Gary had a question: if our endpoints are resolving to our domain controllers and our domain controllers are what resolve to the MDBR, how do we get per endpoint reporting?
That is a good question. I'd have to get back to you on that, on what level of granularity they can give you from the Akamai front there. Let me check with the SOC on that. And yeah, Gary, I actually think I have your contact info. I'll see what we can find on that.
All right. Then there was another question about, will MDBR work in conjunction with another service like Cisco Umbrella? And I can say we have Cisco Umbrella in place and it's working.
Yeah, a lot of people will use another service as kind of a secondary DNS. And it's probably good to have a fail-safe DNS set up as like a next line, because you know, heaven forbid anything happened with a service outage or something. I would say it's probably a great practice to do that.
Okay, and of course, I know just from talking with Kathy and Eugene with you absolutely would like to do more of these. So we've put emails in the chat for anyone that would like to take this on the road, the presentation that you've done today. I'm going to go back up about, let's see. Let me just go back up to the top, because there was a really good question right out of the gate. Is this a subcontracted SOC or is it a part of CIS? And I won't answer that, but I do know the answer. So go ahead, Eugene. You kind of touched on this.
Our SOC is actually totally run in-house. So we've got a staff and a couple different teams that kind of sit within the operations center. Not physically now, we're all kind of remote, but we've been operating our SOC for years here. We have a team for full coverage is our SOC analyst 24 hours a day. And then we've got some other teams that are more on a 12 or 16-hour coverage schedule, like threat intelligence and everything. All that's done in-house, full-time MSISAC and DIISAC staff.
Well, and there was one point where I know there were opportunities for tours, but that was before COVID. So I don't know. We'll see that anytime soon.
Let's start that up again.
Yeah. So this is another really good question about if a county already has purchased EDS for election systems, how can they change to the free version for their election computers.
So EDS, I'm not sure of that acronym, but I can tell you if it's any third party software or other existing solution, it's a rip and replace model. You uninstall your current endpoint security tools, whatever those agents are, and then we supply you with an MSI file that you push out to install onto each of those endpoints specifically.
So I was taking this question a little differently, so I may ask Robert to chime in if that answered your question, Robert. I was looking at it from the perspective of they already have Crowdstrike in place and are paying for it, or they maybe are paying you all for the service. How do you switch it over? That's how I took it.
That's the way it is. I purchased this stuff starting back in November, I think it was, and I didn't realize that the ones for election systems were free. So I've implemented the purchased ones on election systems.
And you did that through CIS?
Yes.
All right, then I will table that and we'll take that offline. Definitely, Robert. That should be a simple internal fix.
And maybe you can give them a credit too, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not going to commit to anything, on a WebEx, but I can tell you CIS will take care of issues that come up like this.
Sorry, Jamie, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
There will be a solution, and I'm sure Robert will be happy with it.
That's right.
That sounds like a mayor.
And we will share this video recording afterwards. And you've already shared the pricing model. Another good question: how would the SOC distinguish between legitimate activity and illegitimate activity in cases where there's indicators of compromise that involve crossover?
So that involve crossover, the whitelisting of certain types of false positives that happens all the time is a part of our environment. And it's definitely no stranger to election space. There are a lot of homegrown state systems, as we know, that are made on Cobalt or Unix or things that come off nefarious. And on a case-by-case basis, as those alerts come in, our analyst, being that live human intel analyst, not an algorithm, makes that determination. So sometimes that requires whitelisting or additional settings to compensate for that system. But each event is handled one by one.
Okay. And Miguel, did that answer your questions? All right. We're going to assume it did. And there was a question about, is this a NACo program? So these are CIS services, but I can tell you that NACo has a signed partnership, actually a signed agreement to support and promote the services that are provided. And it's mutual. So we work together from a partner perspective. So I shared a couple of things in the chat on that. There's another question about from Andrew: can it be deployed on elections PC with another EPP app running? Andrew, you might have to explain a little bit more there.
No, it will cause conflict. I can tell you this now. The only one you can, well, it's a multifaceted question. Yes and no. No, in an essence of having both running actively at the same time, that's going to cause a conflict. But Windows Defender passively can do its role without being uninstalled. But when you onboard and you get your pre-installation questionnaire completed, there is a question that asks, do you want this service to run as a secondary AV? And in that situation, the answer to the question is yes. Sorry for the long answer.
And Miguel has one other question as well.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah. And do you want to ask your other question also, or did he just cover that? Sorry.
No, that's fine. I think you covered both of them.
Awesome. All right, we still have a few minutes. Any other questions and anything, Kathy, you would like to add for the benefit of everyone here?
No, I mean, aside from saying, it's been really impressive to come from being, a stakeholder customer over to the other side of the table and seeing, like, when the questions were asked about whether we use contractors or it was, on staff folks doing this work, it is incredibly impressive the speed with which our SOC folks, get these, get the notice of whatever it is that happens, people are on it. You know, if there's a need for cross communications, they're getting the information and they get right to the customer. It is incredibly responsive, and it's been wonderful to see. And so, Eugene, Jamie, how much do these things cost? like everyone, please, this stuff is federally funded because it has been determined that this is the way that we all know, we've heard a million times, we are only as strong as our weakest link. Like, this is trying to eliminate that, right? So take advantage of it. Take advantage as soon as possible. We know that we've got so many crazy things that we're dealing with that we can't control. This is actually one thing we can control. So please reach out to either services at CISsecurity.org or elections at CISsecurity. You could email me directly at Kathy.bookvar@CISsecurity.org. Like, get on our schedule right away because we're ready to go. We're ready to help.
Well, we appreciate your partnership and all that the Center for Internet Security is doing, and the long-term relationships. I think that's always helpful as well for both our county individuals as well as at the national level. We will be sure to share the recording out afterwards. Brittany Galardian will send that link out along with, we did send the handout already. And I'm trying to think if there was one other, we'll make sure to put email information in there also. So you have their contact information and the PowerPoints. So Kathy, Eugene, and Jamie, if you can get us the PowerPoints afterwards, we'll make sure to include that all in one email. All right. Oh, before we go, Eugene, they want to see your last slide.
Sure, and I can address that question from Miguel on, unfortunately, MDBR does not cover DNS over HTTPS at this time. So that's something that we hear frequently though. And I think that is something we're looking into. If that's, I don't recall if that's like part of a package that we don't have for our service or if Akamai has that capability or not, but we not right now, hopefully in the future. And hold on, let me share that last slide.
And they're talking about a Denver meeting that they appreciated as well.
Hey, stay tuned. We're in the process of planning Baltimore. So
Thanks.
I know, I saw that announcement. Make sure that, what are those dates that we all should have on our, that's right. It snowed in Denver. Now I remember what that was.
Yes. We're all in the middle of the street like children. I remember that.
Oh, well, Sunday afternoon, there was no, like, we didn't even have coats on, and on Monday
Yeah.
we were freezing. So, all right. And if I'll make sure if we can get those dates, I know I have them somewhere. We'll include the in-person meeting that's coming up later this year as well. Thank you all. Yes.
Hey, Rita, I think it's August 8th through 10th, if I have that right.
That does sound correct.
Thanks, Andrew.
Or 7th through 10th. I'm not sure when exactly it's, 7th through 10th.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. It was great to have this hour with you and to share this important information with this group. And we'll be sure to share the link as well back out on the Tech Exchange, where we have over 750 county IT leaders. So thank you again.
Thank you, Rita. Thanks for all you.
Yes, thank you, Rita, and thank the team. We'll see you all in a month or a few weeks.
That's right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.